What's up, guys? Won on that NBA play last night to move to a six-day win streak, which is nice. At a peak as far as how much I'm up on the year. This is the most that I've been up. It was after a fairly significant downswing. Now I'm up above where I was prior to that in mid to late summer, I think. So I like that. That's good. NBA is rolling 15-6 in the NBA, I think, and maybe I could be better than that if I wasn't as selective as I am. Last night there were a couple of games where, like that Penn upset of Villanova there, it's like, you kind of wish you were on that one. It was like a wire-to-wire cover, an outright win. Fun game to watch, but what can you do? It's a lean, and sometimes you don't think it's as strong as maybe it is. Maybe it's better to be selective than otherwise. Quality over quantity. So we move on to today. There is a pretty big college basketball slate, but I'm still not going to have anything on it yet. I just don't see situations that are that strong. It's still that point of year where it's kind of like you're trying to figure out basically just using numbers. Like, is this team overvalued or undervalued? Interesting games on the slate, though. Wisconsin, I believe, at Providence, I think. Some of these games are like in neutral locations. I don't think this is one of them. Wisconsin's up to a 1.5-point road favorite, I guess. Not much to say about that, but it's a close line. You have these games that I think are in Chicago between like the biggest games on the board, the ones that are between ranked teams playing each other. Duke and Michigan State. Duke's up to a 4-point favorite. I think Duke is the only one of these teams that has a loss on their record already, but that was to Arizona, who is another really good team. So I don't know that you can fault them that much, even though Duke was the favorite there. I don't know if Duke's a bit overvalued to start the season or not, since they started the season ranked very high, and I don't think they're quite as good. If you look at like KenPom, one of the power rating sites that I look at, you look at the power ratings, I think probably they don't have Duke quite as high as the rankings do, so there is that factor. But Duke's up to a 4-point favorite against Michigan State. Michigan State may draw a decent crowd there because it's right in the middle of Big Ten territory there in Chicago. So I don't know what I think about that one either. And then the other big game that's in the same arena, probably after that one, back-to-back, Kentucky and Kansas. Kansas is up to a 6-point favorite there. I think Kansas, fairly legit team, which many times they are. So again, I'm not going to really have I don't have any reads on these. I just think these are interesting, at least. Marquette is at Illinois. You have a couple of games where the rankings don't reflect what the odds actually are telling you. So that's a couple of these games that I noticed. Marquette and Illinois. Marquette is ranked like 4th in the country, and Illinois is ranked like, they might be like barely in the top 25, somewhere around there. And Illinois is a 1.5-point favorite at home. This is in Champlain, so it is at Illinois' home arena, I believe. And the people are going to look at this and think, well, Marquette is ranked top 4. They're like way higher ranked than Illinois. How are they an underdog, even though they are on the road? It is at Illinois. Marquette, not really too far away, campus location-wise. Marquette is in, I believe, the Milwaukee area, somewhere in Wisconsin there. But again, I think the odds are telling you that the rankings disparity doesn't tell you like the actual disparity of how good these teams are, at least what's thought of how good these teams are early on. The books are saying maybe Marquette's a bit overvalued here. So that would have me looking slightly to Illinois there just because of the odds versus the rankings discrepancy. But that's like the only thing that I'd be looking at there. And the same would go for Texas A&M at SMU. Texas A&M has actually dropped from a 7.5-point favorite to a 5.5-point favorite at SMU. This one is in Dallas, I believe. This is one where A&M is ranked. People know them. They're a known commodity, a named team. People might overlook SMU. SMU had some nice teams not too long ago where they were making the tournament and I think they made like a couple of okay runs in the tournament. Maybe, I don't even remember. I know they were in the tournament a couple of times, but people kind of forget those days, I think, and don't think much of SMU anymore. But this line has gone down towards SMU. SMU is the home underdog. Probably the only way I would look, even though there's value lost there, because it's gone down from the 7.5 to the 5.5. But there might be some value on the SMU side there. I don't know. again, some of it's gone away, but it does look like the market is kind of signaling that way and moving that way. I don't see any percentages on any of these games yet, but SMU also has the little brother scenario going for them. So not only are they the unranked team versus a ranked team here and have the ranked team coming into their house, so they might step it up, but they are one of the little brothers in Texas. So when they have a bigger Texas team coming in, they might step it up a bit. So that's all I have to say about that. College football MACtion. There's 3 Tuesday MAC games. I don't find them to be interesting at all, really. Eastern Michigan's gone down from 4.5 to 4. 86% of the tickets, 76% of the cash on them hosting Akron. Looks like the numbers, the market read is indicating on Akron as it's driving the line down, kind of reverse line movement there. I don't have much to say about the situation on that one, though, but the total is also really low, so there might be some value in taking the dog there. Western Michigan and Northern Illinois. Northern Illinois has gone up from 3 to 5 as a home favorite, even though it looks like 75% of the tickets and 69% of the cash are on Western Michigan. So that the market is kind of indicating on Northern Illinois in that one. That one is the only thing I could kind of see there is that both of those teams are at 4 wins, so they both have like an outside chance to become bowl eligible, and they have the same record, so people might think that they're kind of even, but the odds are telling you Northern Illinois is actually the slightly better team than Western Michigan is. Some recreational bettors might think because they're just either even records, there might be value taking the dog at like 5 points, but the market signaling against that. But the strongest lean, which this is almost a play for me in the MAC, would be going against Toledo. They've dropped from a 10.5 to a 10-point favorite with 82% of the tickets, but only 81% of the cash. So it looks like there was reverse line movement on this one as well on Bowling Green as the home double-digit underdog. I would potentially take this at 10. It's close. I'm close to it. And the reason is Toledo just clinched their division in the MAC. So they're in the MAC championship. They're 9-1 now in the season. So they might take their foot off the gas a little bit just because clinching that, like you've achieved one of your main goals, which is to make the conference championship. But does Toledo, because their record is so good, do they have higher aspirations? That's kind of the question. Like, do they want to maintain that undefeated? They're undefeated in the MAC, I believe, and they only have 1 loss on the season that was out of conference. Like, they have a chance to maybe even get into the rankings. So is that going to are they still going to have some motivation because of that? I don't know. If they had like multiple losses, I would probably like absolutely be on Bowling Green here because I think Toledo, they really don't have much to play for anymore, but maybe they want to maintain that undefeated status and see how high they can really go. Maybe get into like an even better bowl potentially. So maybe they have that in mind, but they have achieved one of their primary goals, which is to make the MAC championship. So they might take their foot off the gas a little bit and start looking ahead to that. Bowling Green, they're bowl eligible. They've won 6 games, so but I think they're probably going to show up because they have a big team coming into their place, which is Toledo. Bowling Green, there's an outside chance that they can still win their half of the MAC. They got Ohio and Miami, Ohio above them, and it's unlikely they're going to be able to overtake both of them, but I think it is still possible. So I think they still have more motivation on their side than Toledo does. Or Toledo, once you clinch the MAC, and you might over-celebrate that a little bit too. So the lean there would be to go against Toledo. I think that's the strongest lean in college football, would be to take the points with Bowling Green. Moving over to hockey, couple situations. I see Calgary's up from -135 to -144 on the road as a road favorite with 54% of the cash on them, but 60% of the tickets on Montreal. I had mentioned I think Montreal would kind of be in a bad spot here, but I'd be more likely to go against Montreal if they had won the game against Vancouver in their last game, but they lost it pretty badly. But this game is kind of sandwiched in between a lot of big games for Montreal. So Montreal, I believe, had beaten the Bruins the game before that, which I think was in overtime at home. That was a big win for Montreal. Then they had Vancouver, was another big opponent, but they kind of slipped up there. And if they had played a closer game, I would really be looking at Calgary here, even though I still lean that way. I don't think it's quite as strong. And then Montreal does have Vegas and then the Bruins again, I think, after this. So this is like a down spot in the Montreal schedule for sure. But will that Vancouver loss cause them to refocus? Like, if they'd put in and even more, if that was like a max effort that like went to the wire there, yeah, I think Montreal would have really nothing left in the tank here. But I still think it might be tough for them to get up for this game against Calgary. And that's the other thing about this is that people are going to look at this and think Calgary, they have the worst record and they're a favorite on the road. And not only a favorite, but kind of a significant favorite on the road. So the odds makers are telling you Calgary, at least in this spot, but like overall as well, they're actually the significantly better team than Montreal is, which conflicts with the record. So that is another thing I look at where it looks like way too easy to take Montreal as an underdog. People are going to think there's value there. I don't think so, and I think it's not the best situation for Montreal. I'm not going to quite be able to get there with this one, I don't think, but the lean would be on Calgary in that one. But the line has also gone up a bit, so the market read is definitely indicating on Calgary as well. And like I said, it almost looks like a trap having to lay that type of a price with a team on the road that has the worst record. Something looks fishy there. So Calgary would be the lean in that one. And then I kind of have a lean to Tampa Bay, but the market in some ways looks against it. They're a road favorite as well. They've gone down from minus 140 to minus 128, even though it looks like they have 97% of the cash, but only 67% of the tickets. So the cash discrepancy does look like it would be in agreement with me on Tampa Bay there at St. Louis, but the line has gone down on Tampa Bay, so kind of conflicting indicators there. But St. Louis is a team that's in a bad spot. Like, as soon as I saw what they did in their last game, I was like, I'm going to look to maybe go against them in the next game. They won at Colorado 8-2, which is just crazy. They went and they dominated Colorado. I mean, that just looks too good. And then you've had multiple days off, and you're on a 2-game win streak, so that might disrupt your momentum a little bit. That was a 1-game road stand. Now you're coming back home out of elevation too, but will they get up for Tampa, who is one of the kind of like name teams, better teams in the Eastern Conference? Maybe, but that Colorado win was huge, though. And that just makes St. Louis look too good. So then people are going to look at this and again think, like, this kind of looks fishy, where you have St. Louis is the team with a slightly better record. They're at home. So why are they a home underdog? So again, it kind of looks like that Calgary one where it looks a little bit fishy. Tampa is also off a big game, but they lost pretty badly to the Hurricanes at home. So this is going to be a game where they get out of home and they go on the road. So I think it's a better situation for Tampa for sure. So that's the way I lean in that one. And again, yeah, most like the market indicators for the most part seem to be indicating on it, but the line's dropped a little bit. But again, maybe if you like Tampa Bay, that does mean you're getting more value in the price that's on them. So I do lean that way to Calgary and Tampa Bay. But the game I'm going to be on, and this is one where you're taking an underdog that's kind of in no man's land with the Arizona Coyotes. They're in no man's land, and by that what I mean is I think the line might have been a little bit higher at some point, although maybe not, where you can get them as a puck line underdog at plus 1.5 goals and actually get it close to like the minus 110 VIG. So it's almost like playing a spread bet at like the regular like minus 110 price. If they're a big enough underdog for that, you can find a price like that, but they are not quite there. So they're somewhere between that and being like a money line dog where like you think that they like legit like have a shot to win the game outright. They're somewhere in the middle where they're a big underdog, but I would only want to play them on the money line, but it's because I think there's value, but it's like I believe I'm playing them at plus 180. Is that what I did? So it's like in that no man's land, yeah, plus 180. It's in that no man's land where it's a big underdog. You're saying I think there is value here, but you're not expecting them to win every time. You're only expecting them to win like maybe somewhere in like the 40-something% range when you're taking a line like that. You're just saying that they have a better chance to win this game, I think, than what the odds are telling you they have. And that's what I think is the case with Arizona here. So hopefully they get there. Like, again, when you're playing underdogs at that price, you don't need them to win the majority of the time or even 50% of the time. You need them to win, like, yeah, somewhere in the 40% range. But hopefully this one's going to get there. I think it's a bad spot for Dallas. I think Dallas, when I look at the spots, like the situations, they're in the worst spot on the hockey board. They're returning home from a road trip, a 3-game road trip, where they won every game. They won at Columbus, which that's not impressive. But then they won in Winnipeg. Winnipeg's a pretty decent team. That's a good win. And then they finished by winning at Minnesota, which is a nice win. Minnesota, team that made the playoffs last year, team that's been getting some decent wins. They're a pretty good team again. Not only did they win that game, they won 8-3. They won in dominant fashion. Now they're coming back home to Dallas off of that road trip sweep with only one day off. And I always say, you know what I say. When you're coming home from a road trip, even though this was not like the longest road trip, it was a very good road trip. You're coming back home, that can disrupt that momentum that you gained on that road trip. You only have one day off, and you're coming home and you have those like distractions of home life that you need to take care of. So it could be a distracted spot. And this is kind of the down spot in the roster where Arizona, even though they're playing better than they have in recent seasons, they're still kind of a name that I think teams might overlook a little bit. And I think that's kind of been the case in some games this year where Arizona's kind of caught some teams by surprise and they're playing a little bit better than what they have in recent years. They actually have a decent like goaltender tandem that have been playing fairly well so far this year. I've won at least once on Arizona as a dog this year. But I like this. I think it's a bad spot for Dallas. I think that's a situation where they might overlook Arizona because they have the return home spot and the distractions involved in that might disrupt what they've been doing on the road. They look too good in their last game, scoring 8 goals at Minnesota. And then who do they have next after they have a nice break after this game that they might be looking forward to? Oh, they play the Colorado Avalanche, then the New York Rangers, then Vegas, all at home. So they have 3 huge games coming up after this. So this is basically like a sandwich for Dallas here. I think this is a bad spot for Dallas. Nobody's really going to want much to do with Arizona here. Dallas is a team that's been playing very well in the season. They're 10-3-1, very good record, certainly the better team. But in this spot, they're in a bad situational spot, a down spot in the roster. And I think Arizona, like I said, they're kind of a sneaky team right now. They're sneakily they're one game above 500. They are coming off of a win, yes. They beat Nashville, but it was a game where it was back and forth. That was a game I was on Arizona because Nashville was returning home for a road trip too. So they get to face 2 teams in a row that are in bad spots coming home from road trips. So that was a game back and forth. They gave up too many goals in that one, 7-5, but their goalies have been a lot better than that would indicate on the rest of the season, even though I think they're probably going to have Vejmelka in net in this one and not Ingram, and they've won all their like Ingram games recently, but they've lost the Vejmelka one, so that's one thing that makes you a little hesitant on Arizona, but the spot's really bad on Dallas, and I think there is value here. So Arizona just won in Nashville, but gave up 5 goals in that one. It was back and forth. They won in the end. Kind of a tough game, but they have extra days off. They're only traveling from Nashville to Dallas. They have more rest, and they're in a better travel spot than Dallas is by a little bit. It's a shorter trip there. Couple days off. I don't think there's much like momentum that they have to disrupt there because they only won that one game. They don't have anything looking forward to, really. They have Columbus next. I think they're going to be paying attention to Dallas. It's a big game. Dallas is a big team. Going to be going into their house. It looks like kind of that like motivational discrepancy, that discrepancy in the situation that I like to look at. Dallas in that return home, possible momentum disrupting distraction spot that they're in. Arizona coming in, trying to like continue that momentum really that they just maybe have gained with their last game there against Nashville, trying to continue that. They're 1-1 on the road trip so far. They have more games up ahead on the road trip, but this is the biggest opponent that they have on the road trip, so they might be more focused. So that's play 1. In the NHL, Arizona plus 180, and I'm giving out a bunch of other leans as well. Then the other play I'm going to have moving to the NBA. The NBA, I have a couple of leans as well. I do lean to the Indiana Pacers. There are a few situations here where there are teams in these back-to-back situational spots here where the Pacers are at the Sixers for the second straight game. I said I liked the Sixers in the first game because I thought that the line everything had gone kind of too far with the Pacers having a pretty good record, but a record maybe better than what they're better than what the team actually is. Their record maybe looked a little bit better than that. They were coming off a huge win over the Bucks, and then they kind of just ran out of steam at the 76ers in that first game against them. But now that they lost that game and 76ers covered, it would be kind of that zigzag type scenario that you kind of see in the NBA playoffs where the 76ers they might start looking ahead. I think the 76ers have a pretty big look ahead. So they just beat the Pacers in the same matchup. They have to replay it again. And who do they have next? The Boston Celtics. So I think that's a big look ahead for the 76ers, even though they just beat Boston. But that's like the battle for that division and for maybe the Eastern Conference right now. So big look ahead for the 76ers. My only hesitancy here that is keeping me off this a little bit right now is that the Sixers have gone down. They were a 7.5 point favorite in the previous game. They're a 7.5 point favorite here, but they've gone down to 5.5. So the books are getting ahead of that zigzag. And you'll see them do that in some cases now because it was such a strong angle in the NBA playoffs for years. You'll see the books adjust to that a lot, and they have done it here, but maybe there is some heavy money coming in from the professionals on the Pacers as well, because I think they're looking at that zigzag scenario as well. Pacers have 77% of the cash, it looks like, but only 50% of the tickets. So the market does look like it's indicating on the Pacers. That's still the way I lean there. The situation only dictates the zigzag would be the way. And in the zigzag, like I always said, I'm going to talk about two more of these, and I won't rehash it. But, all those zigzag situations, if you're a team that just lost that first game against that same team, you're going to be the one that has all the adjustments to make in that next game, whereas the team that won, you don't have anything to adjust. So what do you have to do? So the team that lost is the team to make all the adjustments. So that's a zigzag scenario. I would lean to the Pacers there. My only issue is that there's a little bit less value maybe in doing so with the line being where it is. Trailblazers at Utah. It looks like the Trailblazers are in. They're getting some of the market movement. The line's gone down from 8 to 6.5 on the Jazz. The Jazz are returning home from a road trip, so they're in one of those distracted spots, even though it does look like they have 73% of the cash, but only 71% of the tickets on the Jazz. So it looks like they have the cash discrepancy, but I don't think that's actually the case because the line is going down a little bit on the Jazz. I would lean to the Blazers slightly there because the Jazz, again, they're coming home from a road trip, so not the best spot for them there, but the Blazers are coming off playing pretty close against the Lakers. That was a game that the Blazers were in most of the time, and that was a game that I mentioned as a lean where the Lakers are returning home from a road trip. The Blazers were a big underdog in that one. They showed up and played pretty well against a good team. So that keeps me off of this just a little bit because the Blazers are coming off a near win at LA, which is a big game, a game they covered as a pretty big underdog. So it's like one of those games where will they have more left in the tank, having to go into Utah, sort of like into elevation in a tough spot. It's a tough spot for both teams in that scenario. And then you have another zigzag on the board with the Warriors and the T-Wolves. The Warriors in that previous game, I'd mentioned they were a 1.5 point favorite, but they actually closed a 3.5 point favorite at home. Because I thought it was weird that the market was telling you the T-Wolves are actually the better of these two teams now, which I don't think anybody really thinks that's the case, even though they have the better record. But I think the T-Wolves, did they win that game? I think they did, right? They wound up winning that game? Yeah. So now it's a zigzag spot where now the Warriors opened this game 3.5, but they've gone down to a 1.5 point favorite. But the market movement is the thing that's keeping me off of this because it looks like 88% of the tickets on the cash on the T-Wolves, but only 50% of the tickets, and the line has gone down from where it closed. So it went up from 1.5 to 3.5 to close in the previous game between these two teams, which was a couple days ago. This one opened at that price where it closed, Warriors 3.5, and it's gone down to 1.5. And it looks like there is movement in the market and the significant cash discrepancy moving it on the T-Wolves. So maybe there's something, I don't know, where I think maybe Draymond Green has been out, maybe suspended, or I don't know what's going on with that, but I don't think the Warriors have other significant players injured or out, and the line is now telling you the T-Wolves are the better team out of these two again, and they do have the better record, and maybe the tides have shifted, and maybe they are, but the Warriors are still that stacked team. They're still that named team, and they're, in a way, it almost looks too easy to take the Warriors, but maybe not when you just saw the Warriors lose the same game. The public, it looks like they might just kind of not want that much to do with the Warriors anymore, but either way, it's a zigzag, so the Warriors, I would only look their way here really to kind of get that quick revenge there, and they're the team that would have all the adjustments to make there. So that's the way I would look there, even though it's another big game. The game I'm actually on in the NBA finally, the New Orleans Pelicans. I'm going back to the team that screwed me by a half point right at the end of that game against the Rockets. That was not fun. Probably should have worked out for me in that game. But this one, the Mavericks are sitting at a 3.5 point road favorite and haven't really moved. They got 74% of the tickets because they are certainly going to be the public team. They're the team with the better record. Everybody likes the Mavs. And they have some star power there. But the Pelicans have 66% of the cash as the home underdog. And this is a situation where this is a zigzag as well, where Dallas went into their house and beat them, and I think the line in that game was basically the same. So I think you're getting that not really the zigzag where the line is moved at all, but you're at least getting the situational standpoint there where you get that quick zigzag where New Orleans is going to be the team that has the adjustments to make there. And Dallas was coming off a big win over the Clippers there, a blowout win. So I don't know. They don't have a look ahead, so that's the one thing. There's not really a look ahead for Dallas here, but I like the zigzag scenario and the way the market is looking here. So you thought that Dallas might be in a letdown off of that Clippers win. They were not. They went in and they won this game, but now New Orleans is on a big loss streak. Nobody's going to want New Orleans here. I think they've lost all their games since McCollum has been out, but I think this is a spot where even though they have Denver up next, they have a couple days off. You're on this huge loss streak. You were 4-1, and now you're all of a sudden 4-6. You got to do something to turn it around. So this is really all about the zigzag and the market read here. New Orleans Pelicans plus 3.5, and the other play is what did I say? Is the Arizona Coyotes plus 180. We're going quality over quantity. We're getting selective, but I did mention those other leans. I don't know, like Bowling Green plus 10, and then I do like the Pacers plus 6. It is now, or whatever it is. Warriors very slightly maybe, and Blazers against the spread. And I lean to Calgary Flames and Tampa Bay, but Lightning in the NHL. But the actual plays. Right now, as of now, so those are all leans, but as of right now, Pelicans plus 3.5 and Coyotes plus 180. Hopefully we get some more. Let's do it.